All right. Good morning. Good to see you. Um, really excited about today's lesson or sentiments or whatever. I actually prepared some material today because we're going to talk about the 10% of your mind that is you, that is your conscious mind, and the 90% subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind carries all of your programming, all of the beliefs as well that you have been over many, many years, all of the years of your life. Um, have been instilled in you and are what bring about your initial reactions, like your emotional responses. And remember that other 10%, that conscious mind, that is you, that's your free will. And that's you being able to look back and being using your conscious mind in retrospect and saying, why did I react that way? Or can I choose a better way to view this? So, it might be a little hard to see. And it's also backwards on my camera. So, kind of hard for me to work with, but this is my interesting drawing of a brain. So you have your 90% up here, your subconscious, and then your 10% down here with a little blue star. I want you to remember this because this is going to be your lifeline on the next slide. And so down here, we have all of the different practices that are going to help you that you're going to use from your conscious mind. You're going to use it here, right? Your day to day, your free will, you get to choose what you do with your day and how you perceive your day. This 10%, that's you. You're going to use these practices down here, one of them, just one of them, so that you can use a certain percent of this 10% every day so that eventually you change this 90% from being 90% negative to 88% negative and 2% positive. And just to review these. So these are your tools of the trade, also known as permission slips, and also mindfulness practices, really is what it comes down to. This one's my favorite, meditation. It's fantastic. Sit down, let any thought come. Don't be angry if you're like, oh, I'm supposed to have a clear mind. That's not how meditation begins. When you're first learning meditation, it's just allowing all of the different thoughts that come and then dealing with them as they arise and treating them in an encompassing and compassionate way, because where are those thoughts coming from? They're coming from that 90%. Coming from that 90%, which is, like if you only have 10% of your brain that you're actively using, that 90% is all of the programming that you already have, and it's kind of hard to compete with. But you absolutely can, because this 90% listens to this 10%. You just have to use the 10%. If you are going through your life and you have like these experiences and you're like, why did I react that way? That's your 10% saying, I want to change that 90%. And if you're just going through the motions every day and you feel like you don't have any energy to deal with it, then that means your 10% is not getting enough mindfulness. It's not getting enough attention, right? Or being allowed enough energy for you to use that 10% to change this 90%. And what's running your life? Is it the 10% that's you, that's your free will? Or is it the 90% that is struggling to keep up? Or that is making you feel like you're struggling because your 10% can't keep up? Okay, so finish going through this. Meditation, a gratitude journal. I know when people say journal, they get all scared about it. They're like, it's a commitment. It's not a commitment. Do it when it strikes you. Do it when you're the most frustrated. You write down your basic needs first, food, water, four walls, ideally love with other people. And there's some other things that you might consider a need that are not actually a need. And you'll realize that when you're going through your gratitude journal. So it says journal, but you don't have to do it every day. Just do it when it feels right. Okay, I've done it like 3 times in the last month, and that's because every time I've done it, it's had a significant effect on me. So then over here, we've got any sort of mindfulness practice. Pursuing your passion. What do they say? Love what you do and you won't work a day in your life. That's very true. It doesn't mean you have to do it every day. Remember, these are not you don't have to commit to doing it every day. Just do it when it feels right. That's the beauty of all this, is only when you have the spare brain power. And if you want more spare brain power, you might have to shift around what you're doing every day so that you're not draining so much energy on something you don't really want to do, so that you can open up this 10% to rework this 90%, okay? So pursuing your passion, yoga, that's something my mom loves. My mom loves yoga. It's not really for me. I don't really like to stretch very much, but I guess it's probably really good for you and causes chemical releases, so yoga's fantastic. Then we've got fasting over here. That's something that I used to believe is inherently intense, but now I've just realized, like, it's all just how you deal with it. And if you do something that you perceive as more intense or takes more commitment from you, then you allow yourself to let that change. So then we have affirmations and mantras, which is pretty good. I think you should always choose your words carefully and speak in a preferable manner so that you're not cementing this idea in your subconscious that you really don't like whatever circumstance has arisen and that circumstance is permanent, rather than saying, well, that wasn't preferred. I would have preferred that didn't happen. But if you just don't prefer it, then that allows it to happen. And then when a preferred thing comes up, the preferred thing is much more impactful. Then we have breath work down here. Breath work's huge. I did 4-7-8 breathing for a long time. I still do it. Like just kind of when it strikes me, I'm like, okay, you're getting kind of worked up, Mo. Like just take 4 in, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. It could be hard at first, and it depends on like I guess some of your physical elements, but like with practice, you can find the rhythm that feels right for you, that allows you to kind of reset your somatic system. I'm not sure. Being in nature, that's a big one. That's a really easy one. Spend some time outside, and these things that seem like they have time commitments, they don't. Do it for whatever time feels right for you, and if you do it for 3 minutes, then that's fine. Eventually, you might find I actually kind of want to do it for a little bit longer, and then one time you spend 10 minutes outside, and you're like, what in the world was that about? Or 10 minutes meditating, right? I would really encourage meditation. That's what's really worked for me. So like I started with the idea that I had no insistence that it would work. I did not believe it would work. So I did it for the first time and I was getting frustrated and I only did it for like 3 minutes. The next time I did it for 3 minutes, then I did it for 5 minutes. And then there was a time where I did it for 20 minutes and I was like, wow, I want to do this regularly every day. And that's when it starts to shift, right? Then you have visualization practice. This is a big one. It's not just visualization like, can I see the nice house? It's, what are all the senses associated with the nice house? Like, what would it feel like for me to be there? If you can replicate that feeling, you're actually having the positive feeling that would happen if you were there. That might seem like, oh, that's not true. It is true. It absolutely is true. And I would really, really encourage you to try and replicate feelings. And if you need to, go to the past to pull out a feeling from the past, to experience it in the present, thinking about the future. That's kosher. That's extremely fine. That's a fantastic way to do it. Then we have down here creative expression. A lot of people out there are artists who just don't know it yet. I'm not super practiced in many forms of art. I would rather talk to people than sit down and try to draw something, as you'll see on this. I mean, look at this brain. That's what I was talking about. Like that's the best of my ability in that category as of now. And then this other one is sound therapy. Works for some people, doesn't work for some others. That's totally fine. Okay, remember, 10% is the blue line. I show you. Oh, I've crinkled the paper here. But that says the sine graph of happiness. So if you've ever seen like those graphs that kind of go like this, they're not supposed to be so pointy. but they go up and then down, and it's a measurement of the positive trend and the negative trend, and how I would argue this reflects life and how we constantly go through this ebb and flow, up and down every day, right? So the way I'm going to explain this is this whole graph, the whole thing together, is your day. And we're going to start at a baseline here. So this is your baseline. As you can see, it says right here. Maybe you can't see that. This is 0. And then one tick down is -1, and one tick up is +1. So we're going to start with a baseline of 0. We're not happy, and we're not upset. We're just neutral. We just woke up, and we have no thoughts of anger, no negative thoughts, and we have no positive thoughts, okay? Let's say, for this given example, you have a good day. Like your day starts well. Every experience you go through, every one of these ticks horizontally, right? We'll call these like, could be hours of experience or could just be number of experience that you have every day. You have so many experiences that you have that you react to, that your subconscious reacts to, and your conscious experiences, and then decides whether or not it's going to affect that and you're going to think about it or you're not going to think about it. So let's say for the first half of your day, the first half of your experiences, it's kind of trending positive. We get to the half, we get, okay, so we just begin to climb. As you can see, this horizontal is your levels of happiness and positive or negative. We just begin to climb, right? Is this blue line. So blue is positive. Your conscious mind, right, is experiencing this rise. It's experiencing this rise. And, a quarter through your day, you're at the peak of your positive thoughts, right? And I've tried to make this as balanced as possible, not reflective of, like needing you to be extremely happy. This is just that you will spend equal amounts in the positive sector as in the negative sector, okay? Because I remember when I thought everything was negative all the time. So you're rising through your positivity. Quarter through the day, you hit your peak of positivity. Spend another quarter, and guess what? It crashes down. Now you're at the neutral point, right? Now you have half your day left. Let's say you ran out of energy because you're doing a job you don't like, living a life you don't like, and you're not using any sort of mindfulness practice in this example so far. Now you're dipping into the negative. And you keep going, and now you're home, you're back from work, and you're ready to just go to bed. At this point, you're totally out of energy. You just want to go to bed. But then you start to rest, or you, I don't know, play video games would be my example. You play video games, which de-stresses you, so now you're rising, and now at the very end of your day, right before you go to sleep, you're back to your baseline. You're exactly where you started. The fantastic part about this is all based off the 90%. This is not based off using the 10%, okay? You want to see what the 10% is? The 10% is this second line that I've drawn here, or right here, right? And you can see I actually haven't filled it in here because I just wanted to show you that. So say we are intentionally being positive, right? Now we've taken a mindfulness practice that has increased our happiness using our 10%, right? This is the math, is 10%. You've gone up by 1 out of 10. Your baseline could actually start at 1 now, but I'm not doing that. I'm just saying by the end of the day, you would rise by 1 on average, rather than starting at 1 and then being permanently up higher. So now you have this trend, right? Well, guess what? Now you've actually reached a 6 on the happiness scale rather than a 5. Well, I mean, that's kind of significant. And now, okay, well, then you start to run out of energy, right? It continues to go downhill. But now your line is actually higher. See that? It's actually higher than it was before. And now we enter into the really low energy part of the day. The part of the day where you start to feel negative. Well, now you're actually still, because you did this mindfulness practice, which uses at least 1% of your 10% that's available to you, right, in your day. Now you are above where you were yesterday by 10% or 1% or whatever it is. And now when you go back to baseline, guess what? You're not going to be neutral. You're going to be 1 above. I hate that I didn't draw that perfectly, or I'm not a fan of that, but guess what? Now you're above that. And if this continues on, do you know what this means? Eventually, if you do this mindfulness practice every single day, your baseline is going to rise every day that you do this. Maybe you have a day you fail. Maybe it actually dips down and you return to the level you were at before. Do you like to live in a negative frame of mind? No, of course. And when you feel this baseline rise, right? When you feel it fall, and then you're going to bed, and now I look back at my day in retrospect, and I'm like, that was pretty. I still had a really good time meditating, or I had all my needs met, or whatever it was that brought you the happiness. I actually didn't put it on there, but spending time with people you love. That's one of my biggest recharges, and also at the same time, some days can take some strength. But your baseline has increased. So now when you start this all again, where are you starting? You're starting at the 1, and then you rise and rise and rise, and then now you have an additional line that is 1 higher, and it looks like that. Do you see that? We are just higher. We started at the 1 over here now. We rose. This actually should be more like this, more even. So now we're higher again. And every single day that you do this, you're going to see that you can actually layer on one little step, one little mindfulness practice. And all it does takes 10% of your brain, 1% of your 10%. Boom. Look at this. Look at how much progress you're making. Look at how much progress you're making. This is you. This is you in 3 days. 3 days you've raised your baseline you've gone from the baseline of 0 and you've raised it to a starting point of 2 in 3 days. You do the math. Is that 10 days to reprogram your subconscious? You're going to ebb and flow, and you're not going to be perfect about it. But I love you, and I trust that you love yourself, even if you don't want to admit it right now. The more you do this stuff, the more you practice this mindfulness, and you stop giving in to the negative point of view, the more your quality of life is going to increase. The happier you will be with the same amount that you had before, right? The happier you'll be, and the less you will ever want to go back. Like, you're never going to want to go back. And you know what the beautiful part about this is? You don't have to have an overtly positive experience. You can have a neutral experience, because you know what a neutral experience is? It's something that doesn't affect you negatively. It doesn't hold power over you. So are you aiming for reprogramming half of your mind? Okay, let's go back to this actually. See this 90%? What you're actually aiming for is 45%. You're trying to make it so that the 45, the half of the 90, plus the 10%, the active effort of the 10% that is you living your conscious moment, like your conscious life, your waking life, that gives you an advantage. It puts you at 55 and 45%. Well, 55% positivity, including the 10%, and then 45% of half of your subconscious still remains negative. So once you hit that 45% is positive or neutral, which then actually makes it like 14.85% is what you're aiming for. If you need something that's lower, that's okay, because I was there too. Okay, I get it. What you're aiming for is splitting this in half as far as positive and negative, and then you can use your conscious mind to dictate, do I want to have a positive, negative, or neutral day? So I'm going to try and do this outro again. I love you. I have great faith in you. And remember, every day that you you take a small percent of your brain power to try and grow your mind, the easier it's going to be, the higher your baseline is going to be for every single day. I can't wait for you to wake up and think about all the things that you appreciate and look back and remember how far you've come, because that's going to reinforce you to keep going, keep climbing, keep dreaming, kid. Man, I love you. Please take care, okay? Okay? You got this.